Hello, Clockwork Beyond here, and I want to make a quick video, maybe quick, we'll see, about some of the problems that we're seeing with the self-help industry. So there's been a lot written about that, quite a few people online that have really tried to meet the demand for people going through their life crisis or different problems, certainly either financial, with family, friends, any of that. So I was kind of taking some notes and looking at some people. I know Andy Frisella was one, and I've seen Facebook posts of people putting a lot of self help motivational things out there. And one thing that really has stood out to me is how inconsequential or ineffective a lot of those are. They might be good in the certain moment, or they might be something where, it's like a motivational quote that you see this, and you think, well, okay, this is good, and this is beneficial, but in the long run, is it really self defeating, or is it something where we say, hmm, maybe there's a better approach out there? So, kind of starting off, I have five main key points that I want to address. The first one, and forgive me for kind of looking at my notes, but the first one is monetization. The second problem that I see in so many of the self help is that it really doesn't address the personality types that people have. And kind of along with that, it's really not individually catered. What works for one person obviously might not work for someone else. And then fix my hair here. It's kind of messed up with these headphones, but and then another one would be really it doesn't address not only just the personality types out there, but certainly it doesn't address a lot of the problems that we have with the loss of our institutions in our society. Those things that have always kind of been those social safety networks or those fail safe, you know, institutions or bulwarks that we've had against a lot of problems that we're facing. A fourth one is a lot of it's really toxic, and then it's built on competition or getting ahead of the next guy, or hey, you're gonna do this great thing, and to heck with the other guy, and you have to give it 100%, and almost seemingly it's kind of like a Grand Theft Auto character. It's really built on just kind of bludgeoning the other guy and getting ahead, and grabbing the bull by the horns. And certainly, to a certain extent, there's nothing wrong with that. But ultimately, that's really self defeating simply because it puts us in the framework that in order for someone to win, in order for you to win, someone else has to fail. And subconsciously, we all know that, well, what if that someone else happens to be me? So even then, though you're going to get it, we have this very toxic win 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 attitude and environment that's out there. Certainly if you look at sports, athletics, obviously they do a lot of good, but it inevitably comes down to we do see teams who don't win, and players who don't win, and then ultimately it's almost though they've done something horrible or they're a failure, and that's not the case at all. So the fact that again a guy like Andy Frisella is certainly in that category. I read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. Forgive me, the name of the author is escaping my mind, but it's really built on, hey, you can have passive income. Let the other guy work. Let the other guy be a sucker. You're smart. You're number one. You can go out and get it. But the other guy's a sucker. Why do we have to live in a dichotomous either or proposition? So certainly that's not good. And then one of the last things, kind of looking at my notes here, um, it really doesn't address the issue that a lot of us are social beings and we can't do it alone. Like we need social interventions. We need some of those social safety networks. So, kind of going back now that I've outlined my five big reasons here. First of all, the monetization of it. The self help industry, it's $1 billion industry. The motivational speaking industry, it's a multi billion dollar industry. You would think that to a lesser degree, there would be fewer, a fewer amount of demand for this if it was effective. Um, so, for instance, the self help industry has grown. Simultaneously, of course, mental health issues have grown, depression, alienation, social isolation. All those things have grown, and because we know there are so many avenues for the self help industry, and certainly advertising revenue is through the roof, whether that's books, the old-fashioned books, whether that's through YouTube, whether that's through avenues like TikTok, Instagram, all these mediums that people have. Certainly going out to speak for high schools. I work for a high school, and we had a lot of motivational speakers come through there. And one of the things that I found was that, it feels good in the moment, but it's like cotton candy. Like, it feels good, it feels substantive. It's like Coke. It's like a pop or some sort of product like that, that it feels good and it might give you that boost like an energy drink, but at the end of the day, it's not fulfilling. And part of the reason why is because, again, there's really no demand for it to be long term fulfilling. The demand is to keep you coming back and keep chasing the dragon with those things. I mean, so many people read all these self help books and they don't really do a lot in the end. Ideally, if you get treatment for, some kind of a health issue, whether that's, a broken bone, or whether that's something that would be, chronic, hopefully you can get to a point where you don't need as much treatment. And certainly the self-help industry, it's like the more that people ingest that or digest that, the more they need. So again, the wolf tickets, I mean, that's really what it is. It's selling a lot of wolf tickets to people, and it's quick fixes, and it doesn't address the underlying issues. So the other big thing, to my second point. Oh, and I guess let me back up first. And don't get me wrong, I believe in capitalism. I think capitalism is great. I think that's wonderful. I think it's great that we can monetize skills. If we have skills, certainly we should reap benefits, financial benefits from those, so that we can be secure. But certainly, if that becomes the main avenue, for lack of a better word, for the self-help industry, if it is all about just raking in these billions and billions of dollars, you wonder really how effective is that. There is something to be said for charitable work, for altruism, and finding that intermediary line where your monetization, capitalization really kind of meets with the altruism of truly, truly wanting to help people. And to give you an example, I've worked at Walmart over several years, and one of the things that I do see is that a lot of the people are financially struggling. So I've gone and I've helped people with their 401ks, and I've gone and I've looked at their finances, and they would ask me questions about, hey, I have this car loan, but I have this credit card debt. Which should I pay off first? How does that work? And again, these are people who are making extremely low incomes, and I've helped people not expecting a dime from that. So there is something to be said for genuine altruism and genuine helping people, and balancing that with the fact that we do have to make money and support ourselves financially, because things cost money, obviously. And it does incentivize people to get better and to motivate people to go work and do things. So enough about that. The second reason is it doesn't really address a personality type. So a lot of the self-help industry really works on a one-size-fits-all approach, and it's really about hey, here's the thing, and here are 12 steps, here are 10 steps, and notice how many steps there are. And I kind of realize the irony is I'm giving you 5 reasons, but we do like numerical things. But to say that these are 5 things you can do, or 10 things you can do, and this is going to solve it for everyone, doesn't really address the underlying issues. So for example, why do you need self-help? Are you having trouble getting out of bed because you weigh 400, 500 pounds, and really you're looking to increase your physical health before it gets too detrimental, before you actually have a heart attack, or do something else? Is it more like a mental health depression? Maybe you just have a hard time getting up in the morning. Maybe you hate your job. Maybe you're having wife issues or husband issues. Maybe your kids are in trouble and you're just stressing out over your family, and that's affecting other areas in life. So the thing is, a lot of the self-help industry does not really address those underlying issues. Now, if we intersect that, where those things meet with the fact that different people have different personality types, there we have a huge problem. So someone who is, and I'm a huge proponent of the Jordan Peterson, what he talks about with like the big 5 personalities, so the level you are in extroversion, agreeableness, conscientiousness, whether you're neurotic or more stable, and then I forget the 5th one off the top of my head. But let's say someone who is highly agreeable, Openness. Say someone who is highly agreeable and very open would not be somewhat the same treatment that you would prescribe to someone who is more naturally temperamentally neurotic and more closed and less open, or someone who is less agreeable, but maybe they're extremely conscientious. So again, some of the self-help doesn't really address a lot of the underlying personality traits that we as all human beings instinctually have. In a way, a lot of the self-help can be extremely self-defeating and can actually be more detrimental than it can be positive. Um, and then I'm going to kind of go on to the third one here. And I think this is probably the biggest one, is self-help can be no substitution for the fact that we have in our society, whether we like it or not, we are seeing a huge detriment to our established traditional institutions. And believe me, this is a bad thing. So I'm just going to go through four of them real quick. Traditionally, we've had God, church, religion, we've had family, we've had friends, and we've had work. Okay, so let me repeat that. We've had God, family, friends, work. Okay, so we've had four of these big institutions that today we're sitting here in 2024 in the United States. All four of those have degraded. Certainly, I don't need to show you the statistics, or I could, and maybe this would be later down the road for another video about how church attendance has rapidly declined in the past, really the past 5 decades, 6 decades, since some of the Cultural Revolution in the 1960s, right? We've seen that, post World War II, Cold War, we've really seen religion in America track down. There's a lot of critiques on religion, and obviously no institution is perfect, but it's as fallible as man is fallible, but it's bulwarked and supported in the foundational belief of God, in a sense of a higher power. And we all need that, because you have to have something greater than yourself. And so much of what's wrong with the self-help industry, it's like it treats you almost as this hedonism, kind of like this hedonic being that is achieving to be self-supporting and be entirely isolated and to be the best that you can be because you don't need anyone else and you're the absolute best, right? And it's completely wrong. Human beings are weak. We're fragile. We need other people. We need institutions. We need something bigger than ourselves. And so much of what's wrong with the self-help motivational industry is it ignores that. And again, I don't want to paint with a kind of a blanket approach here, or just a wide girth paintbrush to say like a one size is the same for everyone. Certainly there are people in the self-help motivational industry who do approach it from a religious standpoint. But man, I'm telling you, if we think that we just live on this earth and there's no God and there's no religion and there's no social institutions on this earth like church to support those foundational beliefs in a higher power or in a holy book like the Bible, or the Torah, then that's a huge problem. We need God, we need faith, we need to have religion. Again, human beings are extremely fragile, and no one is above needing something bigger than themselves to believe in. And I want to kind of keep this video under 20 minutes, so I'm going to kind of move right along. So the next one would be family. Family is extremely important, but what has happened to the divorce rates in this country since really the rise of two big things, and again, this could be a subject for another video, but really since the rise in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s of no-fault divorce and birth control have really taken out that necessity for marriage, to have a family, to have kids. So right now, since that time in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, with the Cultural Revolution, we've seen a huge disintegration of family. Right now we have millennials and Gen Xers. They're simply not having kids, nor are they getting married. And traditionally, if you were going through some kind of a emotional crisis or some kind of a life crisis, you would always have those social safety networks to lean on. You would always have a spouse or parents, brother, sister. If you're older, certainly your children would be a source that you could turn to in times of need. And with the extremely high divorce rates, and yes, I'm well aware when looking at the divorce rates, a lot of those numbers are indicative of people, like one person or rather two people who have been divorced multiple times. So I understand that kind of skews that a lot, but we have more of a like a cohabitation society. We have more of a, hey, let's try it out, sampling. Or like if you've ever seen the film or read the book Fight Club, they talk about single serving friends in Fight Club, and that is entirely true with what we're seeing for relationships. Certainly monogamous relationships have really kind of gone out the window of late, and with that, of course, family. Millennials, Gen Xers, as I said, or not Gen Xers, Gen Zers. Well, it probably started with the Gen Xers, but Gen Zers are not having kids, and it's a situation where what's going to happen, 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the road, with that too. So really our family, the idea that, so many broken families out there, so many toxic families out there, we just don't have those social safety networks the way we did. Think about when our country was being founded and when the settlers would come across and explore this, new world. They had those institutions, they had big families. You know, there was always someone there to help you. And now we have so many people who are socially alone and isolated and just don't have that. Kind of going down the list here, the third thing would be friends. I forget what the statistic is, but I believe it's close to 30 to 40% of all Gen Zers and millennials report that they don't really have any close friend. They have maybe acquaintances, but they don't have a close friend that they could call in the middle of the night, and the waterworks is coming down because, their dog died or they lost their job or something horrible happened, and, they need a person to talk to that would pick up the phone at 2 in the morning, and we just don't really have that anymore. Or someone who would drive, to go help them or invite them to go live in their home for a bit if, their home was taken out by a tornado or a natural disaster or something, and we just don't have those friends in our social network, which is kind of ironic because as we are more of a social media driven society based on like Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, all these things, we've never been more interconnected, but we've never been more alone. So again, to kind of make sure that I don't go too off track to bring this into the idea of self-help, it's, self-help, it won't entirely address all those issues too, that we need it. And the last thing here, kind of in this subcategory, would be work. We have so many toxic work environments. The fact that if you look at so many employers and they constantly will market themselves as when they're doing headhunting and when they're looking for more employees, they'll say, well, we're a family, we're together and all this, which is kind of, if you infer and read between the lines, why is there even a need or a necessity for an employer to say that they're a family? Traditionally people had meaning through work. Traditionally people actually had a family, and work was kind of something that you did to make money. You would have meaning through it. But, the idea of work being family seems so, I don't want to say farcical, but it does seem very like an empty, hollow thing. It's like a facade of family. It's this idea that work can satisfy something where if you don't have those close relationships with friends and family or spouse or religion or faith, that work is going to replace that. And that's not true, at least on the social standpoint. But again, we all have to have meaningful work. Now, I want to take this into the big thing, is that so many people switch jobs. The idea of getting the quote-unquote gold watch, if you've been for a company for 30, 40, 50 years, your entire working life, and it would have those financial supports, you would get a pension, you would have financial security and certainly job security within the work. That's all gone by the wayside. Now we're lucky if people stay at a job for, let's even throw out 5 years, 1 year, 6 months, and people are certainly job hopping. And I think a lot of this, and without getting again too deep into the weeds, but the Peter principle is a very real thing. Who are managing people? Who are these companies? and how are they treating employees, and are they giving the financial stability that people need, and certainly the training, the motivation. And I think a lot of it, with the Peter Principle, we have people who are really good employees at what they do, and then they get promoted into positions that are really above their threshold of competencies, or certainly would not be a good fit for them. Um, like manager roles, you might be great at your job, but if you're not good with people, and if you're not good at really kind of troubleshooting and reading people and having a logic along with the compassion, you're probably not going to be a good manager, even though you were great at your job, and just going into management was the next big step. So the fact that, again, to tie it back to self-help, the fact that self-help doesn't really address a lot of these deficiencies within the job economy is a huge, huge problem too. Um, so another one, just kind of trying to wrap this up quickly, would be self-help. A lot of it's built on, as I mentioned before, getting ahead of the other guy. This concept of go and compete and bludgeon the other guy because you need to get ahead. It's really this self-defeating, ultimately hollow sense of you thinking that in order for you to win, somebody else has to lose. And so much of the self-help industry is built on this. It's right. It's like, hey, let the other guy fail, let the other guy not do well, because you can go out and you can do this. And again, as I've said before, it's an either or proposition. Again, Andrew Frisella is one who talks a lot about that, and there's been others. And it's self-defeating, because I think subconsciously, ultimately, we know that we could be that guy that is the one that's not winning. And certainly, is there any shame in that? Why do we shame people who don't necessarily get ahead? The idea of, if you're not making six figures, then you're a failure and whatever. I think ultimately it's really about, kind of going back to my second point and addressing each individual. It's ultimately about what's satisfactory to you. So if you think that, hey, I'm only making $60,000-$70,000 a year, and if that's satisfactory to you, then why should you feel like you've lost or something like that, or that you've failed? And I think it's really a ridiculous notion. And so much of the self-help industry, so much of the motivational industry is built on this. Again, as I said earlier, it really feels like a Grand Theft Auto character, just kind of hammering at home, like, be a winner, dude, be a winner. And it's so toxic, and it's so false too. It's so false, and ultimately, it's not really based on cooperation. It's not really based on any kind of a social institution. It's more of kind of a man eat man, dog eat dog world. And you could certainly make an argument that, yeah, it's tough out there, but we all need other people. Certainly, I bet any of those motivational people who you see, they've all had a coach. And there's this old saying that even Michael Jordan had a coach. You have the GOAT, the greatest of all time, even they needed a coach. So the idea that you just entirely pull yourself up by the bootstraps and get ahead and just start kicking everyone in the teeth because you can do this, it's so incredibly toxic and false. It's such a false narrative. And then finally, the last thing is, it doesn't really address, self-help doesn't really address the fact that, again, we're social beings and we can't do it alone. So for instance, there's a lot of passing the buck. It's like, well, go get help, go talk to a doctor, go to therapy, keep trying. And then the other thing is, see what's out there and is available to you. And we don't really think for people, and again, I've worked with a lot of people who are in financial dire straits and who are working entry-level wages. It doesn't really address the fact that a lot of these people are financially struggling. If you're struggling and don't have means for insurance, or have really poor insurance, you can't afford therapy. You can't afford $200-$300 an hour for someone who likely will not give you any tangible, concrete things. So again, it's really built on that premise that we can do it alone, and the fact is that we need other people. We need interventions. We need people to come help us in those social the fabrics that we've had out there to really motivate us. So so I think one of the last things that I want to talk about too, and we'll kind of end it here, is that it doesn't really address it. Again, like a lot of people, they do have issues with mental health, depression, especially post-COVID, especially since we've seen a lot of people lose faith in those social institutions post-COVID. So self-help really does not address a lot of those issues too. There are a lot of good ideas, and I don't want to completely rag and trash on the self-help industry. I think there's a lot of good ideas. I think it's good to, learn a skill, read a book, do, certainly exercise, network, talk to people, do all those things that they talk about. But ultimately, we're missing the point. We're missing the huge point. And if I were to kind of close the video with this, an overarching theme or key of this is we've really lost a lot of the social institutions that we've had because, again, no man is an island. Can't remember if it was a poet, John Donne, or William Blake, who said, no man is an island. But trying to be an island is not the way to do it. And so much of the self-help industry is really built on wanting to push that approach out there. So again, just to kind of wrap up, my 5 big problems with the self-help industry is 1, it's built on monetization. It's really about racking in the billions and billions of dollars, so it can't really succeed if people don't get better. The second one is it's not catered to individuals, and it doesn't really address people's individual situations and personality types. Again, you have to look, people have to be handled differently. And again, I taught for 14 years in the classroom. I understand that I cannot approach each student individually, or I'm sorry, I had to approach each student individually. If I approach them as a whole group without differentiation, I would have fell flat on my face. So the problem, again, it doesn't address personality types and temperaments. The third one is, it doesn't address a loss of our institutions with God, family, friends, and of course, the loss of meaningful work for a lot of people. And then 4, it's built on this crazy idea of just bludgeoning the other guy, trying to get ahead of someone else, stepping on them at all cost. And then a 5th one is it doesn't really address the fact that we can't really do it alone because we as human beings, we are social animals. And the idea of pulling yourself up by the bootstraps sounds great in theory, but in reality, we need other people. We have to have other people, and we need to be altruistic, and we certainly need to help people as well as acknowledge the fact that we need help by other people. So, and not just abstract but tangible steps. We don't need abstractions, we need tangible interventions and things, someone to go to the gym with us, someone to go do these things for us. And really, it's not, the self-help industry is really not built on building a lot of those social connections that you need in our society. So again, thank you for listening. Again, that was just kind of a quick out, not really quick, it's approaching 30 minutes for the video, but that was just kind of an outline of 5 big trends that I see as a huge problem within the self-help industry that is absolutely currently blowing up right now. It is so huge, multi-billions, billions of dollars, with everywhere from Facebook, everywhere from Instagram, TikTok, and certainly traditional books and media. So it's a huge, huge advertising market out there too. And I think that's really mainly what it is, without actually getting people to improve and live a life that they find satisfactory to themselves. So again, thank you for listening. Greatly appreciate the time. So hopefully you hit like, and please subscribe to my video, and all 2 of you who are watching. Maybe if I'm lucky, there'll be 3 of you watching, but we'll kind of see what happens. So again, it's a clockwork peon. So thank you very much, and have a great day.